In this video, I would like to talk about the book, The Cathedrals of England by Alec Clifton-Taylor. And I would specifically like to talk about the foreword and chapter 1. Let's start with the foreword. The foreword talks about the background to the book, why it's come about. And Alec Clifton-Taylor explains that this is the reissue of a previous book of the same title, which was a book which contained photographs by Dr. Martin Hurleman and notes describing those photographs and describing the cathedrals which those photographs depicted by another person. And that this book, which I'm reading, is a reissue of that older book, which contains Dr. Martin Hurleman's photographs, as well as some more photographs by different photographers, as well as some more comprehensive notes which Alec Clifton-Taylor has written himself. He's added to the notes which came in the previous issue of the book. So that's the book. And what is the purpose of the book? What actually does the book do? Well, because it's quite a small book, it can't go into massive amounts of detail about all the cathedrals of England. So what Alec Clifton-Taylor does is he selects the greatest examples, the greatest excellences of English cathedral architecture and talks about those things. It's a small book, so he's had to be selective. So he's just chosen the best examples of English cathedral architecture and the most important milestones in the history of the development of the English cathedral architectural style, such as the building of the choir at Canterbury by William of Sens, which I think was the first the first building to be built in, or first part of a building in England to be built in the Gothic style. So that's what the book is about, and that's what's described in the foreword. It's a reissue of a book on English cathedral architecture, and it's short, so it's only selecting the best examples of that architectural style. Now, in chapter 1, which is called The Masterworks of English Architecture, I think, Alec Clifton-Taylor talks about the opinion of English cathedrals. He talks about how they've been viewed in the past and how he views them himself. He sees them as the supreme expression of English architecture. And he says that, well, number one, until the Victorian age, they were the biggest building, the largest buildings in England, if you measure largeness by space enclosed, volume of space enclosed. They were the largest buildings in the entirety of England. And he has the opinion that they are the supreme expressions of English architectural style. But the Victorians did not hold that same opinion. Previously, that was actually not a common view. And in fact, previous generations of Englishmen actually derided the medieval English cathedrals, primarily because they didn't follow rules, or they didn't follow the same rules which those previous generations fell in love with, which they adored, namely the rules of classical architecture. For instance, the fact that certain sorts of columns must have a fixed ratio between the diameter of the column and the height of the column, and there wasn't a fixed ratio for those things, between those things in English cathedral architecture. There was a lot of variety. There was a lot of different forms of decoration, which was constantly developing and which wasn't the same between two different cathedrals, and certainly not the same across time. And the symmetry was, the rules were not obvious and they weren't the same everywhere. So that's one of the reasons why previous generations of Englishmen actually did not like English cathedral architecture, of the medieval type. And they essentially derided them as Gothic, as built by Goths of northern England, the Goths and Lombards, and essentially called them barbaric creations, which were far less worthy of appreciation than the Renaissance cathedrals of southern Europe, or of the perfection that was reached in classical Greece and Rome. Alec Clifton-Taylor says that actually you shouldn't contrast the romantic Gothic cathedrals with the classic Renaissance cathedrals in the classical style, but actually you should think of the Gothic cathedrals as the synthesis of the greatest elements of both the Romantic and the classical style.